adventure that you are beginning. For how many of you is this the first student in your family that will be embarking on the college admissions process? Yay! Be excited. Be happy. It is an adventure, and I will say that. In part because on our end, things are changing every year. What you'll find is what you thought might have been occurring, maybe if you know someone who has a child, often it's not true. What they experience might not be what you and your student will experience. So please recognize this is a very individualized experience. Certainly you can listen to friends, colleagues, families that you know that have been through the process, but recognize this is a very individualized and personal process for you and your student. And it should be respected as such. I say it's an adventure because it should be fun. Part of this is really learning more about you and your student, and hopefully developing a relationship that goes beyond kind of parent-child to a friendship. So some of that will happen in the car, and some of that will happen in the discussions as you start to make decisions. There's information that we passed out and left for you at the back. If you don't have it, you do not need it to keep up with this presentation. But feel free to take any of the materials that you'd like with you before you leave this evening. So there's a copy of the PowerPoint presentation along with some very specific Michigan information. What you'll find is colleges and universities will all have these brochures. As you'll find, I don't believe we have a winter picture in our brochures. As you all know, we do exist in Michigan, and there is a wealth of winter pictures we could provide. So as I say that, I say it tongue-in-cheek to let you know that we always put our best foot forward. There are probably some really beautiful winter pictures here, but certainly colleges and universities don't necessarily share those pictures that the thought is, it's probably cold there, huh? So again, we recognize that often these brochures give you some of kind of just an overview of an institution. So this is just a snapshot of information. But the other pieces are things you would learn either through a visit or visiting a website. So we encourage you to make sure that you do that for any of the colleges and universities your student might be interested in. There's also information about financial aid. I encourage every family to make sure that they file for financial aid. As we say this, often families will say, well, I don't think I'm going to qualify. You never know. So I encourage families to apply. 2 weeks ago, we had a student who started as a first-year student on our campus. The family lost their home, and two family members actually perished in a house fire. The student didn't start classes thinking that would happen. No one in their family thought that would happen. Their life changed drastically. The income of the family changed drastically. But certainly because the student already had forms on file with the Office of Financial Aid, they were able to step in very quickly. And certainly at a time like that, it alleviates one item that can be very stressful, but also very much needed. So I encourage you, put those application information pieces on file so it doesn't become something that later on you end up needing and really wish that you'd taken care of on the front end. The last piece is just a web card, and for us, basically it gives you information about all the schools and colleges, so if you have questions about individual curriculums, if you're looking for things like summer camps, or additional information about things like AP results or how credit is awarded, this gives you the direct website information so that you can find it online. Tonight, what I'm going to try to do is answer questions for you really about the admissions process. So talking to you a lot more about things like, why do we choose college? And often I think that sometimes families think about it very much in terms of, well, I'm going to college because everyone I know is going to college. Hopefully at some point each student will come to a realization of why it's important to them specifically. What are all the options out there? I'm going to basically, some of these things move through a little bit more quickly than others because certainly the guidance departments here, specifically Mrs. Bodery, does a very good job of providing information about the variety of universities and colleges around the country so that your students have a good idea of really what's available, the sizes and the variety of institutions, but also programs that might be available to them. In terms of thinking of the right preparation, your students are definitely in a good situation. They're taking curriculum that will provide them with a wide variety of options. So the college prep curriculum available here is very strong. So it means they have a lot of opportunities to challenge themselves in the areas where they're interested. Additionally, who can help them? Their guidance counselor, you, family members who they may know, or neighbors who also have interest in that same curriculum, visiting colleges and universities, certainly visiting websites. All of those things will be things we'll discuss tonight. The application timeline, as you'll find nationally, it's moving up earlier and earlier. But there are some of us that timeline isn't changing. So you'll learn a little bit about colleges tonight, how those decisions and when they're made, can tell you a little bit more about the institution as well. Things to consider, how close or how far far the institution is from home, how much or how little interaction you'd like to have either with your parents or with your students, really will be important as you start to make those enrollment decisions. Lastly, visiting college campuses. Some of you probably already started to embark on that process, and certainly it can be very important. One, to determine, gosh, this is a campus that's really spread out. How am I going to get around? I'm not really comfortable with this. Or, gosh, this is really a small campus. I was looking for something that maybe was a little bit more spread out. Or certainly, where is it located? Is it isolated? Is it in a location that certainly the student doesn't feel comfortable with? So often maybe they have a dream of a particular school, but they haven't visited. The pictures online look great, but once they get to campus, not so great, simply because of where it's located, or again, maybe it's proximity to some other things that they're not as interested in as well. The admissions process is probably the most important, so trying to make certain that students recognize what are we looking for as we make those important decisions. What are the elements of the application and how important it is to complete those items as much as possible as you're completing the application. Certainly answering those questions in as much detail as you can is very helpful to the admissions officer. Being admitted is certainly an honor for any institution, and certainly as we make our classes, we're looking for students who will contribute to our campus communities. So once students are admitted, the fun begins, because now you have choices. And as you're making those choices, it's not only about how you perceive or think of yourself today, but what you envision for yourself in the future. Sometimes that can be just far away from home. Why choose college? Certainly for students, we want them to explore and learn about themselves and learn about a particular curriculum. Sometimes students know, and sometimes really students don't know. Often colleges and universities may have a much more specialized curriculum that will really pertain to students who know for certain. For instance, I'm attending a university that has a specific engineering curriculum because I know I'd like to be an engineer. Certainly at the high school level, we would hope that that student has explored the curriculum to determine that's a good fit. If the student is thinking of an engineering university and unfortunately hasn't taken curriculum or attended programs or been involved in clubs and organizations that have explored that in high school, then they might be setting themselves up for unrealistic expectations once they join that campus community. Does the campus provide the opportunity for the student to change their mind? So certainly to decide, maybe I like math and science, but technology isn't the thing that I most enjoy. So maybe engineering isn't a good fit, but certainly a major in the sciences might be. College is also an opportunity for students to learn and grow. So certainly they might think initially of a particular area of academic interest, perhaps something that maybe they call it the family business. Everyone is interested in that, everyone's in education, or everyone's in the sciences, and so the student certainly feels that might be their area of expertise, or not. So again, as it relates to exploring really what are the academic areas of interest for a student, selecting a college or university that will allow your student the flexibility to change their mind is very important. You also get to meet other people and learn about their experiences. So sometimes, again, it's not just about what you learn in the classroom, but certainly those experiences you'll have in the residence hall, in those campus community organizations, and certainly just in general, it might be that city or town where the school is located as well. And of course, all of us want happy students who can earn money and live away from home, yes? And certainly perhaps have places where you can all go and visit them, yes? Absolutely. Options. Certainly there are students that are thinking that technical trade is not something that they're thinking of at this time. But certainly what we're learning is that in industry right now, there's a shortage of people who are very interested in technical or skilled trades. So again, as you're thinking about your student, is your student a tinkerer, someone who loves to take things apart, put it back together? Is the person who's constantly fixing things? Certainly if your student is at a place where, school right now isn't necessarily the thing they're most interested in, but they really like that hands-on, day-to-day physical opportunity, perhaps something that's more of a trade initially would be something they were interested in. Certainly we have students that initially start in that regard, transfer either from a two-year school, so a community college, or come back and earn a degree at the undergraduate level that's parlaying that, whatever it might be, into a business. So I encourage families to really be thinking about what are the things your students are really passionate about and how that then can be something they can make into a career rather than thinking, oh my gosh, how will you survive? I use my nephew as a great example. He's an artist, but we're probably exact opposites. He's 6'6" and 250 pounds, so he's a pretty big guy. And when he was little, often the discussion was, how will he feed himself as an artist? And so his parents certainly were encouraging him to go to into architecture or engineering. He hated it. And so as a high school student, he fought every engineering camp, every architecture camp, everything that they put him in that certainly they thought was drawing-esque. And in his mind, he just wanted to draw. And so as he continued in high school, really he began to think of ways that he could demonstrate to them he could survive as an artist. So he began his own business online, really beginning to make logos for people, and has continued that and earned an art scholarship to college. So again, sometimes as you start to examine your own students, recognizing sometimes they will need the push or the pull. The push sometimes can be you pushing them in the direction of their area of interest, or the pull, where you're really placing them in programs and saying, this is what I think will work for you, and sometimes they might agree, and sometimes they'll say absolutely not. And sometimes that can spur them the complete opposite direction, which can fuel their interest and their drive to really prove that the thing that they're interested in can be a viable opportunity. So again, that's very individualized based upon how your individual students are motivated. Certainly, four-year colleges and universities in the state of Michigan, there are 15 of us that are public. Certainly, there are also private opportunities as well. And as your students are thinking of those things, they'll start to think of size. So they'll start to think of whether or not they're thinking of a large public institution like the University of Michigan, where we admit students who have a wide variety of backgrounds. We offer over 200 degree programs. There are over 1,400 clubs and organizations. So what you're hearing is there's a lot of variety there. So a student who's undecided, is unsure of what they're interested in, a large public institution often can be very helpful to that student because, again, they have the opportunity to explore quite a variety of things, both academically and socially. But thinking of a medium or a small public institution, again, still provides some variety, but it may be more limited because of size. So they might not offer 200 degree programs. They may offer 100 or 50. It really depends on the size of the institution. They may offer 50 clubs and organizations, and maybe 7 sports or 10. So again, those sizes sometimes can limit some of those opportunities outside of the classroom. And that's where it can become important in terms of how certain is your student in terms of their area of academic interest, because certainly the size of the institution can help to dictate how much of a variety will be available to them. The small institutions, so as we think of small private or medium institutions, again, what you'll see is perhaps a difference in cost, but also variety in terms of those academic areas. They're also related to private institutions as the doctrine of the particular school. All of us have a mission. So as you think about colleges and universities, look for our mission statement to determine what's the college indicating their focus or their mandate. Who are they really indicating that they serve? The Office of Undergraduate Admissions at the University of Michigan indicates that we're really looking for students who are academically excellent, who are engaged in extracurricular endeavors, and broadly diverse. And we are looking for those students from the state of Michigan, from the United States, and around the world. So it clearly indicates our priorities and what we're looking for as we're evaluating students in the application process. What you'll find is most colleges can provide that same mission statement so that you have a very good idea of what they're looking for as they're evaluating your student's application. Large private universities, again, will look very similar to public except for that doctrine. You know, what are they grounded in? What are they really indicating are their focus or their mission? So that's important to recognize as well. Cost can also be a factor as well. So as I've covered this information already, what you can find is that the large public institutions